aside from the NSG members, are new to this term, new to this concept, new to this approach. So these slides are meant to guide you. But I am also promising you that immediately after this presentation, we will share this slide on the WhatsApp group. And even if you are not on WhatsApp group, after the presentation, you can meet my colleague here and he will add you on that WhatsApp group. The reason why we did that is because we know that on WhatsApp groups, you can pass information and everybody has the potential of seeing it rather than individuals. And that's why we created the WhatsApp group ahead of time. Next slide, please. So this is the outline. But again, first we'll be looking at the Kaduna infrastructural development problem, because before you take the move to join any initiative, there has to be a problem. Before we decided to join open government partnership, there was something we wanted to solve. Before we joined COS, there was a problem and there was something we want to solve. Everything about government is actually solving problem and improving service delivery. So look at what is cost and what does it do. We look at the cost approach, and then you see how we are operationalizing the cost in Kaduna. We'll look at the Kaduna procurement data, infrastructure and procurement data portal, just for you to see how it looks like. And then we'll look at the data points for OC for IDS, and then we'll also look at the implementation status. We'll also look at our meal plan, because for joining COS and the grants that was given to Kaduna, we are supposed to do series of activities by the time the portal is developed and by the time you've published data on the portal. So all of these things needs to happen and is part of the meal plan. We also have the annual work plan, and then the cost stories of change. The annual work plan and the cost stories of change is a bit of reading that you need to do on your own to see how countries who have gone ahead of Kaduna, particularly at their national governments, the progress that they are making in terms of using infrastructure transparency to deliver services to its people. So the essence of that, we have stories from Malawi, from Ghana, so that you can look at it and see. So what were the problems in the infrastructure sector? One of it is eroding trust among sector players. Nobody knew what the other was doing, private sector, civil society. What is even government even doing? It's like government is shrouded in secrecy. We do not know what we are doing and all of that. And so trust was not there. And then declining quality of public infrastructure. We are in Kaduna. We know the experiences that we've been having in terms of quality infrastructure when you go to some schools, when you go to some hospitals and all of that. And then delayed payment and institutional bottlenecks. Contractors are being owed, they've not been paid. You know, all of these issues, you know, are some of the things and the reasons why we decided to join COS. And then incomplete and hard to understand infrastructure data was also a very, very critical problem. Why? Because, you know, with the structure that we have in engaging government, we have civil society and we have what we call the accountability mechanisms. I'll try to throw more light on that because it is also the foundation of data demand that we have in Kaduna State. And those structures work in different sectors and they use data for evidence-based advocacy. I say evidence-based because you just cannot come and meet government and say, you've not done this, you've not done that. You must show us data that, yes, indeed, this is a problem. And they have been doing that. And they have been complaining that the OC for OCDS, Open Contracting Data Standard, has not been so efficient. Data is not usually published on time and all of that. So all of these reasons are some of the reasons why we decided to approach cost. Now, what is cost? So cost works with government, private sector, and civil society to disclose information on investments in infrastructure. So if you are a member of cost, you are supposed to have 3 categories of stakeholders on one table. On one table. The government has to be there, the civil society has to be there, and the private sector has to be there. Because the representative of government are representing the public sector. The representative of private sector are representing the entire private sector and the group that they come from. Civil society on the MSG are representing the larger civil society in Kaduna State. So you need to have these three stakeholders on the same table. And when you are discussing issues, you are discussing issues that pertains to the issue of public infrastructure. Government, practically, you see government saying, oh, we are constrained by funding, we don't have this, we don't have that. You hear contractors saying, oh, our members are not being favored, they've been giving contracts to foreign companies and all of that. So these are the issues that are meant to be discussed on the MSG and addressed on the MSG, because it is a solution ground that is cross-sectoral. So that is why we have the MSG, and that is the brain behind why we have the MSG on cost, as part of the cost approach, so that we'll continue to solve problems. And this helps to inform and empower stakeholders. So when you're on the table, definitely information will be on the table, because you are bringing three sectors on the table. Civil society will come and say, these are the challenges that we are facing in the work that we do in rural communities. Yes, we have seen that children go to school, but they do not have the necessary infrastructure and the learning environment. So these are the issues civil society bring on the table, and contractors who are delivering those infrastructure will be there. Public sector who are supposed to make sure that that school is done are also there to listen to some of these challenges and find ways to address them. Now, and enable them to hold decision makers to account. Ultimately, this contributes to better value for money and better quality infrastructure and services. This is what cost is all about. But in doing this, so many things usually happens. And that is the cost approach that we will go next. But before then, what does cost also do? Develop tools, standards, and guidance. So for setting up the MSG, there's a guidance note. For independent review of data, there's guidance note. I'll take you to the cost approach. And the website I shared with you ahead is for you to go to that website and see what cost is all about. You also see their tools, their approaches, their standards, so that you get familiar with them and know that for everything that we do in cost, there's also a guidance note to guide you. So even if you are a new member, if you are a new person to the space, you can always read that guidance note and know what cost is all about, even without calling me or calling anybody, on your own to understand. Because at the end of the day, we want better service delivery. Also, it's worthy to note that even as public officials, when we close from our work by 5, we go to our houses in communities. So at the end of the day, what you are doing is, when you do your work well, you are also contributing to effective service delivery. And so they operate a membership program. The membership for COF is full membership and affiliates. So Kaduna is a full member. If you are a full member, there are certain benefits that come to you. You can apply for grants, you can get technical support, and a whole lot of other things. You also have the opportunity to also be sponsored to international events to talk about the progress that you are also making. So all of this, operates under the membership program. They also provide technical assistance and financial grants. I mentioned grants earlier, but for technical assistance, once you agree to join cost, they come down to train you. They will not leave you to just start haphazardly. No, they will come and train the MSG. And it's important to note now that the MSG is in the heart of the cost initiative. The MSG is so important and is the life wire of cost. Without the MSG, Cost International will not recognize what you are doing. They will not, because they believe that setting up the MSG will represent voices from different sectors. So it will be balanced, views will be balanced, and all of that. So technical assistance, truly Kaduna has benefited from 2 technical assistants. And I don't know if some of you were here when they came for training for assurance, because we invited the procuring entities to come and listen to them and hear what cost the independent review process, is. Because for everything you want to do, they come down and give you technical assistance, either physically or virtually. And Kaduna has benefited from 2 technical assistance missions from the UK. Promote learning and inform international debate. Cost usually attend international debate, sometimes organized by World Bank. So they go there and also make their point about their contributions in the infrastructure sector across the continents of where they have presence. And then they promote learning. Almost every last week of the month, they usually have a virtual sessions where they They promote learning amongst its members. If you have challenge of fundraising, they can bring an expert for you. You join, you listen to the approach that you can use to write proposals to get fundraising for your programs. Yes, they have that connection to do that for you. And if there are other members who have been successful in developing an initiative and have implemented successfully, they will bring that person on board to come and share their story. So it is not doing something abstract that they do. What they do is actually practical so that all other members can also learn and benefit. They also strengthen financial management because you also send quarterly reports back to them every quarter, every quarter. So you have the opportunity of learning from them the way they do their financial management as well. And then ultimately, when you put all of these things together, what COS does is to improve lives. What they are doing now to support Kaduna State, what they are doing to support Malawi, what they are doing to support Uganda, is all to improve life. What they are doing to support Mexico, all is to improve lives. Next slide, please. So the cost approach. This is what cost is all about. It revolves around this. Now, you remember some persons here, introduced themselves and said member of the MSG. So we have them here, and we have that set up for Kaduna. And I mentioned them here like commissioners, private sector, as well as civil society. So we have an MSG. The MSG is made up of government, industry, and civil society working together to achieve one common goal, which is improving service delivery and improving lives. And then build trust and effectively solve complex challenges. While I was speaking earlier, I was jumping into this when I was talking about the MSG. I'm also referring to the MSG because they are the heart, again, of course, initiative. The next thing is disclosure. And that the MSG is a multi-stakeholder group. And that is why we are here, because public officials are in the heart of ensuring that data is disclosed and is put on the public portal. And then COS has supported us by ensuring that we have this portal up and running, and that is why we are here. We would have done this long ago, but because of the back and forth that we've been having, it is now that we're able to, to complete the portal and have the badge, and that is why we are having this training. And so 40 data points disclosed routinely and periodically over a whole life cycle. So project level and contract level data will be disclosed. When we go down, you'll see when we talk about 40 data points, 40 data points. And it's expected that MDAs, you should familiarize yourself with these data points because you will be the one to ask for them when you are publishing data. Oh, we do not have data on this. We do not have the report for needs assessment. We need to upload needs assessment for this project. We need to upload this. We need to upload and a whole lot of other data points that you need to ask your technical people to give you those information so that you'll be able to upload on the template and also on the portal. And then I'll go this way. The next is assurance. Assurance now is called the independent review process. And we're beneficial of that training. Now, what does assurance do? Because infrastructure is actually a technical area, what it does is that it leverages disclosed data. So when we are done with putting data, we want to do independent assurance process. What we do is that we select professionals, architects, open data specialists, building engineers, you name them. We will select them, and then they will do the process for us and produce a report called an assurance report with findings and recommendations. What it does is that it takes disclosed data and then turns it to and identify the gaps in those disclosed data. But that is not just enough. There's also a field visit part. You said you've disclosed this data. What is the other part on ground? What is happening on ground? You've disclosed the data. What is the implementation level of this data? And so when you compare these things, those professionals are able to now generate a report, a solid report that will be approved by the MSG. And the MSG are the ones also that will also approve the persons that will be recruited as those consultants. And then when you have them, you give them money, they will do the job, and then they will bring the report. And the MSG ought to own this report because they are coming from different sectors. They should own this report and they should be able to defend the report because it comes with findings and, most importantly, implementable recommendations. What should we improve? from the data that we have on the portal and what is on ground? What should we improve? Because in cost, when they are trying to address corruption risk, it's not to point to you and say, oh, you are corrupt. No, 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 no. It's to improve performance. Because if you improve performance, there will be no way for corruption to hide. So technically, it's to improve performance. And that's how the focus has been, even up to this moment, is to improve performance. So this is what the independent review process, but a whole lot of things happen before we get to the point of even having the independent, because you need to have terms of reference, you need to recruit these people, make sure they have the time, they have technical capacity. You also have to review all of this before you give them the contract to do this. And the MSC must approve their report. And then when all of this is outside, we now go to the social accountability part, which has to do with engagements. Now, engagement by who? By civil society, by private sector. So it is expected that when you are putting out disclosed data, when you are doing assurance, there should be social accountability approach. The social accountability approach seeks to ensure that people understand what government is doing and use it for evidence-based advocacy. Very, very important, evidence-based, because truly, you can't just come out and say government is not doing this. You must give evidence. So you must back it up by facts, by data. And you can see that it's government that will put this data out. So it is expected that you should fall back to the data and then you're able to do. I'm saying this because part of the things that accountability mechanism does under open governance is to pick data like this and go to rural communities and go and say, okay, we are tracking infrastructure projects. For those in education, there's what we call Kaduna Basic Education Accountability Mechanism. Their own is to track and ensure that service is delivered to the disadvantaged communities and communities all around Kaduna State. What they do is that they go on their own, they go and check the quality of the schools and then data. They collect a whole lot of information around that and then come and do what we call scorecards. Scorecard is a document that puts together all the findings and possible recommendations and use it to strategically approach the heads of MDAs. Sir, you have built this infrastructure, but we have noticed in virtually all the schools in Kobo, you did not consider persons with disability. It is only when you go and collect data that you know that. And then you can begin to influence change. So this is the great work that they do. And let me just tell you, the data that you put out is for my own benefit, is for your own benefit. Because at the end of the day, we are not marginalizing anybody. Nobody will be at disadvantage so long as we do this work very, very well. So the social accountability aspect is to strengthen that use of data for evidence-based advocacy. Demand action that is translated into practical improvement. Because when you say, sir, you have built this school, but there's no ramp, only staircases, how will persons with disability cope in terms of learning? And so when you do that, somebody will just sit back and say, wow. You say you build a school also, but there's no safe spaces. All of these things is data. When you go and collect this data, you bring it. Some persons will sit and say, I'm surprised, and all of that. So sometimes this work that we do is something that gives joy, because you know that someone who does not know you, who you do not know, you are changing his life in a rural community somewhere that you have never been to. And don't forget that the little work we do here is affecting about 10 million residents of Kaduna State. So we must always have that at the back of our mind, that it is always Kaduna first, it is always the people that will benefit from the good work that we do. Now, like I said earlier, this is, so I'm taking you now through, so this is the setup of the MSG. And I've been able to, to call them out. We have the Commissioner for Planning, for Public Works, for Housing, and the DG. And then we have legal awareness, follow taxes, civil society co-chair of OGP, and civil society co-chair of open contracting TWG. And then for business and private sector, we have Contractors Association, we have Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, we have Kaduna State Union of Journalists, we also have Kaduna State Society of Engineers, Kaduna branch representation. Because if you look at the private sector, we picked people who also have large covering in terms of the group that they represent, because of what we intend to achieve. If you go to other members, of course, you may not see it this way. This is not cast on stone, so you may not see it this way. You may see them considering different category of people in the private sector. And that is okay. So long as you have representation and those people can represent those sectors very well, you are allowed to set up your MSG this way. Next slide, please. Now, this is the portal that you'll be engaging with. I decided to put this as a teaser for you to just see, and get a feel of it, of how it's looking like. And thankfully, just to announce to you, I think 2 days ago, day before yesterday, they reviewed the portal from the help desk, because before you do anything, I tell you that over a year we've been going back and forth to finalize this data, because you must meet that standard. That standard, you must meet it. If you do not meet it, they will not approve your portal. And just day before yesterday, we received an email that, oh, our portal has met the required standard, and they have given us the badge. Congratulations, everyone. And as you're interacting, you will see some changes, because we will now put the badge. We will now put the badge on the portal, so that anybody who visits it will know that Kaduna, as a subnational member, is publishing data in OC for IDS standard. And that way, when you come and you're a professional, you know how you are engaging the portal. And so that is why the badge is being given to us. Next slide, please. Now, open contracting for infrastructure data standard. You remember I said, for cost, what the data that they preserve is, and they do is IDS, infrastructure data standard. And then they also work in partnership with open contracting partnership that has OCDS. So it's a combination of infrastructure data and open contracting data, project and contract level data for IDS, and then contracting process details for OCDS. So all of this combination is the data point that we have, and we will be disclosing on this. But this is not just, this is theory. We will also go to other slides where you begin to see the data points, and you begin to appreciate and begin to think, okay, this and this and this are the kind of things I should be asking now, so that I'll be keeping them, because I will be responsible for publishing those information. So data disclosure, Donny, so from cost IDS to OC for IDS, and then the infrastructure analytical dashboard. So by way of structure, the portal that we just passed now also has an analytical dashboard. Very, very important, because you need to be able to analyze this data based on different sectoral needs. For private sector, what they want to see, they want to know who and who are getting the contracts. And that's their own interest. Yes. They also want to know, because part of their work is to ensure that while projects are going on, they are going around to ensure that those contractors in their association are maintaining the standard as required. That is also part of their work. The Society of Engineers are also following and making sure that their members are not cutting corners. So you can see that they are not on the table to fight government, but to complement what government is doing. Because at the end of the day, when there is gap in anywhere, service delivery suffers. Poor quality infrastructure will be the outcome of the day. So everyone's hands is on deck to ensure that we are able to deliver quality infrastructure in the state. And so from IDS, OC for IDS, and then you have the analytical dashboard that will analyze the data. And let me tell you something. With Kaduna's portal now, the analytical data, AI also has been embedded. So when you go to the way they give contracts and you click on AI, AI will be able to analyze it for you. On your laptop, you will see all of these things. You will see them on your laptop. When you press it, it will analyze, give you an executive summary, give you what the system thinks based on the data that has been published. And then you'll be able to see who and who are getting contract. What is the quality level? Where is the budget overrun? Because when you give contract, there's a budget for it. And if that budget has been exceeded, what then happens? It means there's poor planning. So that's a cause for concern. So it means that in the next cycle, there should be improvement in the planning process. So the data there is also to help government. The data there is also to help all the sectors and make everyone informed. And the good news is that for civil society who use this data, they go and tell communities that, okay, you'll be able to get information on your project that is being implemented, so that you can track for ownership. This is so important. You don't just neglect it because government presence in your community. We don't know what this contractor is even doing. No, we've passed that stage. So this portal is there to support them, to ensure that they know what government is doing. They know that he's supposed to do A, B, and C. They know the contractor that is coming to do the work, and then they will also be able to help and support the contractor, even protecting their equipment, because they know that at the end of the day, who will benefit from the project? It's them. So they must do everything to support and ensure that the contractor is able to deliver. And that's it. And so, no, go back. As part of this portal also is worthy to note that we also have sustainable procurement and climate finance data points. This is also important because we know where we're going to. Climate change, adaptability, resilience, all of these, we are also considering them. So if you have projects that has to do with those climate finance data points, we'll begin to disclose them. But we'll do them, as you begin to understand how you disclose data, you begin to also look at projects that has this climate finance, and sustainable procurement approach as well. Very, very important. And a sector-oriented project risk, also in terms of water, sanitation, and hygiene. All of these issues are things that we will be disclosing across different sectors. Hold on. So this is also a way of also attracting financing. We all know that. So when you are publishing the data, you can approach donor with a proposal and say, okay, we have challenges so and so community, I want to solve it. But one thing you need to know is that we have data that we're publishing all of this information for you to see and validate what we are saying. Sometimes these donors, before they give you money, they do background check on you. They don't know that they're not throwing money into water. So they do all of these things and ensure that you are saying the right thing and you are approaching them to deliver the right results. And so they will want to support you when they're able to gather enough evidence on you and they know that you can deliver results. So this approach is actually two ways. My colleague will also come and take us through, I think, about 4 or 5 slides, and then I'll also continue from where he stops. Thank you very much. Engineer Suleiman. Remember, I said we have a dual secretariat. That is why we are working together so that we'll be able to achieve the needed result. Truly, we cannot do it on our own, but we need all your support to do that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tara. Yeah. Just go to the next slide. Okay. You can see from the presentation slide, and just as the cost manager have said, cost approach will be having 40 data points as mandatory for us to publish. 40 data points, 20 from project data and 20 from contract data. We have project cycle, which includes identification, preparation, completion, and then tender. Then we have the contract data, has to do with the tender, that's the tendering, the bidding process, contract award, and then contract implementation. So these 20 data, they're actually proactive disclosure. It's mandatory proactive disclosure. That's the MDAs are going to be publishing them as part of their routine service delivery, not on request. Then we also have additional 27 data points that are actually reactive disclosure. The MDA can decide to also be publishing those reactive 27 data, even without a request, but also they can also, it's actually also a mandatory for them to disclose that information whenever any person, any stakeholder requested that information. So let's see the data points. Under project identification, we have project reference number. And this project reference number, thank God, even on the system, it has been designed that the system will assign an identifier, a project identifier, unique project identifier to each project, which eventually will now engage the MDAs to adopt that as a project number. That's project number, because Kaduna said actually we don't have a standard procurement numbering system. So since we already have a system now that assigns a unique project identifier, that's immediately after you have gotten your procurement plan approved, we now upload that planning aspect of your project. The system will assign a unique identifier to that particular project, and then eventually MDAs will now adopt that unique identifier as their project numbering, project number for that particular process. So that's project reference number. Project owner Is it the state or counterpart project, sector, subsector, project name, project location, purpose, project descriptions? That's under project identification. We'll also be having project preparation information that has to do with project scope, the impact assessment, EIE, land and resettlement impact, contract details, funding source, project budget approval dates. Under tender management, we will be having the name of the procuring entity, the contract detail, the procurement process. What's the procurement process? Is it selective, single source, direct procurement as first account? Contract type, contract administration, entity, contract title, all this data you can see up to contract status. We'll also be having information with regards to the contract implementation. That has to do with variation to contract price, just as Mr. Dara was talking about budget overrun, escalation of contract prices, variation to contract duration as the completion, and then also variation to contract scope and reasons for those changes as in terms of the price and the scope. Under project completion, information that has to do with the project status, completion cost, completion date, scope at completion, and the reason for project changes. All these are some of the information that MDAs must provide on the portal. I think there's others. The next slide. Yes, you see, still under project identification, we have project officials and even their roles. In the portal, we eventually going to see where you now put all the project officials and even their roles. Let's see the evaluators. Who are the evaluators? Who are the project manager? Who are supervisors and what have you? We also have the budget system, the project brief and feasibility study, the EI. Okay, that's right. Okay. Okay, just give up. Okay. Under tender management, we have the contract officials and their rules, procurement method, tender document, tender evaluation results, project design reports, contract agreement, and conditions. All these are important documents. You see, the evaluation report, the bid opening report, the contract agreement. I think these are some of the documents that stakeholders, essential stakeholders need for them to make an informed decision on that particular project. And I think it's part of the practice or part of our culture. We usually from KADPPA request for contract agreements from MDAs for us to upload that on our website. So now we are not going to, we are going to stop uploading them on the portal. These, the MDAs themselves, they will now be uploading them on this particular system. In fact, under contract implementation, we even have payment certificates, contract amendments. Under project completion, we also have the progress reports and the budget amendment decision and what have you. So all these data points form the 40 data points and the additional 27 data points, making it about 67 data points. So which part of it is proactive, that's mandatory for the agency to publish, and then about 27, they are actually reactive disclosure. So just as the customer said, we are going to share this presentation slide, and when we have the chance to also go through the system, we see all these data points are already on the portal. The mandatory parts are marked asterisks. Local consultant, I think the mandatory are marked with asterisks, so that to know that okay, these are mandatory data requirement. You must provide that data, while the rest are the reactive disclosure data. So we now be able to see them and be able to practice the upload subsequently. Okay, we also have data that has to do with climate finance. I think just as in the presentation before the customer that left, I think you see a component called sustainability. So it's talking about the climatic finance. So Some of these data are already part of those data points, but with additional other data points that has to do with climate objective, the financial instruments, and the climate transformation. Under preparation, we have the beneficiaries, the amount of investment, funding, and what have you. Under implementation, we have the disbursement record, the project monitoring, performance, and others. We have the operation, the impact measurement, carbon footprint, and then the commissioning aspect of the projects. All these form part of the climate finance. Because in some projects, the state wanted to leverage on and get some funding that has to do with climate finance. So we have to publish this particular data point for us to meet that target. Okay, thank you. I think Sarah will come and carry us forward.
So far, what we've been able to do on assurance is you all know from practice of what we've done for cost is to have an MSG that is well represented. So the next thing is to have we reached out to the International Secretariat. They supported us to come and train 15 professionals. And we were able to do that in December last year. So we have a pool of them. Out of that pool, we'll review them in terms of their capacity and their availability, and then the MSG will approve us to do an assurance. That is something in the pipeline at the moment. And when they came for that engagement, what they did was to engage also the multi-stakeholder group because of their importance in cost, for them to understand their roles in terms of the assurance process. And that was successfully done. They also engaged the Secretariat for us to also know our roles when it comes to the assurance process. And then one thing again they did was they engaged civil society to also understand their roles, because assurance report does not carry weight if there is no evidence-based advocacy to influence change. It is not complete until that component happens. And so, like I said earlier, part of the assurance report is to highlight key findings and implementable recommendations. And once that is done, the next thing is to begin to engage. And they did something very, very unique and very, very nice for us. What they did was to introduce what we call role play. Some persons will act as the MSG, some persons will act as media, and all of that. So they did all of that in different groups, and then they did as if they are launching a report. We are launching a report in Kaduna, kaza, like that, and then you're able to engage, because you have to talk about this report using evidence. So there's always an approach that you use to influence this change. So what they did is to introduce what we call the role play approach, and we're able to do that. And now, what we have in Kaduna, the new portal, just to throw more light on that, since we have finished it now, is that Kaduna has been disclosing data even before now in open contracting data standard. So we just moved a notch further to start disclosing in open contracting for infrastructure data standard. So the portal takes into consideration your regular procurement. It also takes into consideration procurement on infrastructure projects. So it's a two-in-one portal that we have here in Kaduna. And like we mentioned also, we asked them to also introduce climate finance modules that was shared previously. So if the project that you want to upload has climate finance module, you just click it has, and then it will open those other data points. So all this theory you are seeing, when you go to the portal and you click it, you just open the data point for you, then you see it. So it's actually practical. And so don't try to go and be trying to cram this data point. No, don't do it. Everything is on the portal. It's there on the portal. So when you start interacting with it, you begin to understand bit by bit, piece by piece, how the portal works and how you should engage with the portal. Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to something because all of you here are also pivotal to this next thing. So aside from the cost approach, there's what we call Infrastructure Transparency Index. Very powerful tool. And what ITI does is an instrument that is used to measure the level of transparency and the quality of processes related to public infrastructure at both national and subnational level. For us, it is subnational level because we are subnational as Kaduna. Now, collaboratively designed and based on traditional good practices and lessons learned, with the objective to provide stakeholders with quality information that serves to promote transparency and improve the management of public infrastructure. What this simply means is that there's an approach of ITI, and the ITI has what we call more like a guiding principles that will be used to rank each ministry, department, and agency how transparent they are. And then by percentage, the results will come out. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of that. I can promise you that. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of that, because your head of NDA, they will tell him that, oh, you're not transparent enough. Not that he's not transparent, but he's not doing it enough. And the good thing about it is that the results, I used to compare country to country transparency. They can do that because the result will be in the cost website. So you'll be able to see what is the score, overall score of Kaduna. You'll be able to see on each of the